Vian clutched the weathered map. It crinkled in his hand, promising adventure. Zoro, beside him, spun a brass compass, his grin as bright as the sun. Before them, the emerald forest stretched, a vibrant tapestry of green. Sunlight dappled through the leaves, painting the forest floor in shifting patterns of light and shadow. The air buzzed with the drone of insects and the melodic calls of unseen birds. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, whispering secrets only the forest knew. Vian, ever the pragmatist, traced their route on the map. This was his quest, his chance to prove himself. Zoro, always the optimist, hummed a cheerful tune, excited by the unknown. They were an unlikely duo, but their friendship was as sturdy as the ancient oaks that guarded the forest's edge. "Ready for this, Zoro?" Vian asked, his voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. Zoro, eyes sparkling, simply nodded, his compass needle spinning wildly. With a shared look, the two friends stepped across the threshold and into the emerald embrace of the unknown. The forest welcomed them with open arms. Well, not literally, that would be creepy. But the sunlight seemed warmer here, the air sweeter. Zoro skipped ahead, his laughter echoing through the silent trees. "Vian, come on! This is amazing!" he called, stopping to admire a cluster of bright blue mushrooms. Vian, map still clutched in his hand, couldn't help but smile. Zoro's enthusiasm was infectious. They followed a winding path, the forest floor soft beneath their feet. Giant ferns brushed against their legs, and the scent of pine filled their lungs. Occasionally a startled rabbit would dart across their path, its white tail aflash against the green. Vian, ever cautious, noted landmarks, a twisted oak with a gnarled face, a stream gurgling over moss-covered stones. He marked their progress on his map, his brow furrowed in concentration. Zoro, meanwhile, chased butterflies and collected colorful pebbles, his pockets bulging with treasures. "This place is incredible," he exclaimed, holding up a perfectly smooth, heart-shaped stone. "It's like something out of a fairy tale." Vian had to agree. The forest had a magical air, a sense of wonder that whispered in every rustle of leaves and chirp of a bird. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the forest floor, the mood changed. The cheerful chatter of birds faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. Even Zoro seemed to feel it, his boundless energy waning. "Do you hear that?" he whispered, his eyes wide. Vian listened intently. At first he heard nothing but the gentle rustling of leaves. Then he heard it too, a faint whispering carried on the breeze. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled. He gripped his map tighter, his heart pounding in his chest. "It's probably just the wind," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. Zoro didn't look convinced. The whispering grew louder, swirling around them like an unseen current. It sounded like voices, murmuring secrets in a language they couldn't understand. "We should keep moving," Vian said, his voice tight. He quickened his pace, his eyes darting nervously around the darkening woods. Zoro followed close behind, his usual cheerfulness replaced by a nervous frown. The forest, once welcoming, now felt oppressive, full of unseen eyes and unheard threats. They rounded a bend in the path and stopped short. Before them, a chasm yawned, splitting the forest floor in two. A rickety rope bridge swaying precariously in the wind offered the only passage across. Planks were missing, and the ropes looked frayed and worn. The whispering intensified, seeming to mock their predicament. Zoro gulped, his eyes fixed on the chasm below. "You're kidding, right?" he squeaked, his voice barely above a whisper. Vian swallowed, his stomach churning. He wasn't a fan of heights, or rickety bridges, or creepy whispering voices, for that matter. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus. "We can do this," he said, more to himself than Zoro. He tested the first rope with his foot. It held, but barely. "Ladies first," he offered, trying to inject some humor into the situation. Zoro, however, didn't find it amusing. He shook his head vigorously, his face pale. The wind howled around them, whipping their hair across their faces. The bridge creaked ominously. They had no choice. They had to cross. "Okay, new plan," Vian said, taking charge. He knew that if they were going to get across, they'd have to work together. "We cross together, one step at a time. I'll go first, you stay close behind." Zoro nodded, his eyes still wide with fear. Vian took a deep breath and stepped onto the bridge. It swung precariously beneath his weight. and he fought to keep his balance. He focused on the opposite side, ignoring the dizzying drop below. Slowly, he said, holding out his hand. Zoro, his face pale but determined, took a hesitant step onto the bridge. The ropes groaned in protest. Vian kept his hand outstretched, his grip firm. "You're doing great," he encouraged, his voice calm and steady. They moved slowly, inch by inch, their combined weight testing the bridge's limits. The wind buffeted them, trying to rip them from their precarious perch, but they clung on, their friendship a lifeline stronger than any rope. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they stumbled onto solid ground on the other side. They collapsed onto the soft earth, relief washing over them in waves.